Okay, welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. You're in for a treat today, guys. We have, for the third time on the show, Mr. JT Tomlinson and his partner in crime from Bulletproof for BJJ, Joey Worthington. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, it's your third time on the show, JT, man. So you're a pro at this.
It is. It's always been a good experience chatting with you guys. Always great to chat to you, and also obviously super stoked to be here in the company of my business partner Joey. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Well, let's get into it.
All right. So
for anyone that you go, Todd. Okay. Sorry, I was going to jump in.
How did you guys get together as a business partnership? Like, what's the story behind that? Because I don't know if anybody. I certainly don't know, but not sure how many of our listeners know. Where did you guys meet? Was it Tinder? Was it,
Tinder for jiu-jitsu people? Was that a comp? we met each other as blue belts, right?
Yeah.
And we'd had a lot of people. It's kind of a funny story. We'll keep it brief, but we'd had a lot of people. JT was in Melbourne, I was in Sydney, and we'd both had friends of ours come up to us and say, "Hey, have you ever met that other blue belt from Sydney or from Melbourne who kind of looks just like you and does kettlebell training and is kind of strong and stuff?"
Yeah.
And it didn't make any sense to me at first. And then it was like a comp in Sydney.
Yes.
And we actually got a photo from it. I've been meaning to post a photo on the Bulletproof page for a while, but we looked exactly the fucking same. We both had the same haircut. We both had a beard.
Yeah.
We're both kind of a little bit skinnier, a little bit younger, more fresh faced, and blue belts.
Yeah.
And we never competed against each other or anything like that. But I remember you kind of cornering me on a couple of matches.
Yes.
Just by chance. And we were sort of mates for a long time.
Yes.
In different states. And then it was you that actually came with the idea to collaborate, right?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, guys, that I guess we'd known each other for a couple of years, and I'd been able to kind of link in and get a taste of what Jungle Brothers was about, which is the gym that Joe founded with his best mates, Paul and Tiora. And I always thought it was a great gym. And I was like, such a cool gym. I wish we had a cool gym like that in Melbourne. And I was working on kind of grapple fitness, which I guess was like my concept around getting people stronger and fitter and more flexible. And Joe actually had what he was doing was called Bulletproof. And I think it started with a workshop or a seminar, and then it evolved into a bigger thing. And I felt in a lot of ways that they were similar, even though there were differences to them. But I thought, you know what? This would be better if we could do it together. I wanted to see, if Joe is open to it, because I truly believe like the best stuff happens from teamwork. And essentially, if we kind of kept going separately, it'd probably be like competitive to each other.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just said, "Hey man, like, what do you reckon? Shall we collaborate and do a rap album, or like, what are we going to do?" So and it's been one of those things that it's kind of had its own momentum. Obviously, we've learned different things along the way in terms of how we work together, but yeah, it's been surprisingly synergistic.
Awesome.
So how would you, for anyone that may have been living under a rock and not know what the Bulletproof for BJJ program is, how would you sum it up in a couple of sentences? What is it?
Bulletproof for BJJ is us helping BJJ players become stronger, more mobile, and build bodies that are less prone to injury. So the idea is we give them all of the knowledge we can around strength training, mobility training, and a bit around recovery and lifestyle, in the hope that they can be better educated and be able to train jiu-jitsu for the rest of their life and enjoy it without all of the injuries and without all of the ongoing pain, which, as we know, is really kind of comes with the territory. And it's obviously a part of the sport, but it's something that we think could be greatly reduced.
Yeah.
What about at the moment, like obviously you guys are in Sydney, right? So there's lockdown there, but like in Melbourne, we're in and out of lockdown all the time. I'm kind of interested to know, what are your customers kind of coming to you with at the moment? Like what's the, just describe kind of like what it's like to be a customer with you guys as their trainer in a situation where they're in lockdown. What's the kind of stuff you're doing with them?
I guess we've got sort of two sort of sides to it. We've got the work that we do one-to-one and in a small group setting, which is through the gym here. And obviously at the moment during lockdown, it's in the park.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a cool thing that JT and I both do with a handful of people. But the larger part of it where we have the most impact is through our online program.
Right.
The cool part about that is that it can reach across the globe, which it has. We've got, people using the program from all different parts of the world. But the other side of it is we don't get to know them as intimately. So it really, like JT does a weekly live through our Facebook group where he'll get to connect with some of them. I run the Instagram, so I get to connect with a bunch of them there. And then we have, different avenues of communication, people sending us technique videos and posting us questions on the email and that sort of thing. So I suppose the experience for those folks is really, it's quite unique to all of them. The people that we speak to is anyone that resonates with that idea of, yeah, I'm in pain. Fuck, I could be moving better on the mats. I need some help in the gym. And whatever that is for the person, whether it's immobility or whether it's a lack of strength or whether it's just not knowing how to structure their training, they all sort of seem to be getting us the solutions from us.
Yeah, and I was going to say, we have a fair few people on the program who are experienced in training. We have ex-bodybuilders, ex-powerlifters, ex-military people who've really pushed their bodies hard and they've got a bit of wear and tear, and now they've found jiu-jitsu. They're loving jiu-jitsu, but they're struggling to deal with all this wear and tear. And I think that one of the huge differences between what we do and all the other stuff that's out there in the world is we really advocate for people to be healthier. It's not just, get stronger. Yes, improve your flexibility. It's like, how are you approaching this so that you can come to jiu-jitsu feeling better? And actually, I'm going to segue a little bit here. Kim is a very experienced lifter, trainer, black belt, stalwart of the mats and the comp scene. Kim was doing Bulletproof for BJJ last year. And how did you find the program, Kim?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think in some ways a lockdown, awful as a situation as it is almost a really good opportunity to get into an online program like that. I'm pretty lucky that I have a fair bit of equipment at home anyway, but you don't even need that much really. A couple of kettlebells, a couple of stretchy bands or something, and you're set more or less. There's different levels of the programs that you can do where you can even just use body weight. It was interesting. I joined it primarily for the mobility side of things, and I enjoyed the strength as much as any of it. So yeah, absolutely, it's available to everyone from white belt through to black belt. It's such a universal sort of thing. It's great. And I was going to say as well, you don't even need to actually join the program. Like, it is very economical, very affordable. But you can just do, like Joey was saying, join your Facebook group or your Instagram page, or I think you've got a YouTube channel as well. You've got a newsletter. So people don't need to actually, we can put the links into this when we send it out. But yeah, you don't actually need to pay any money at all to still get the benefit of quite a lot of you guys' knowledge around all of this stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. What I discovered for myself, like I personally recently just took on a personal trainer in that sort of space. I should have actually come and seen you guys, but he kind of appeared in my world and said, I want to give you some free love. And I was like, great. So I took him on, and what happened was I actually discovered, because I just trained BJJ hard, like all the time, 6 days a week. And I discovered that I had been putting up with injuries. Like, I would go to bed at night in pain every night, but tell myself it was okay. It was part of BJJ. And I was like, literally my sleep was affected. My business was affected. I'd probably yell at my kids sometimes when I didn't need to, who knows, right? Like, through dealing with this guy, it kind of unlocked, like I was able to go, oh, actually my shoulder's feeling better today. Oh, actually, all of a sudden I have no pain in my shoulder and I'm still doing BJJ 6 days a week. So do you guys experience stories like that where it kind of unlocks stuff for people that they never expected would get unlocked? Like, have you got some stories like that?
Yeah, I think one of our biggest stories is amazing. I want to give a shout out to Iris Russell. If you know Iris,
yeah,
she, I started working with Iris a couple of years ago, just one-on-one. She'd had a bit of a car accident and a few things, and then ultimately she wanted to get into Bulletproof.
Yeah,
and she's one of our first ever kind of foundational people with us from the start. She's into her 3rd year with us now. It's amazing. But the crazy thing is this, which we never expected. She started improving her mobility, which made her body feel better, which actually meant she trained jiu-jitsu more, which meant she burnt more energy, which meant she ended up losing like 15 kilos or maybe it was more weight than that, just because she was able to move better, move more. She had more energy, she burnt more energy, and she lost weight. We never designed the program to that end, but that's what it can do for you when you unlock your body from all this binding and winding that jiu-jitsu does. And we actually, that's the thing that's really not stated enough. And you can't expect a jiu-jitsu black belt to know this, but you have to undo the wear and tear that you're going to put on your body so you can, stay on the mats for longer.
Love it.
Yeah. What is it you think about jiu-jitsu that makes it kind of so obsessive to people? Because it seems like not like any other activity where people will drag themselves there, injured and all sorts of things. So how do you kind of get through to those people that they need a program like yours, or they need to do some other things besides the jiu-jitsu 6 days a week so they don't end up injured?
I suppose that's a big challenge because, most people that are training jiu-jitsu do it because they like it, and they're not necessarily, for the majority of them, they're not into going to the gym. And so, like sort of touching on that last question, what we're doing is teaching people simple methods that we've been using for decades in the gym.
Yeah.
How to address certain joint mobility issues, how to build strength in certain areas that really produce big results, right? So maybe Anton, this kind of speaks to your situation a bit. You get someone who trains a bunch of jiu-jitsu and doesn't really have any interest in much else, but they don't like pain and they don't like not being able to train jiu-jitsu and they don't like having to take time off the mats and miss out on the next promotion or whatever it is. So you can kind of leverage that and say, well, look, how about if we improve your hip mobility a little bit? You'll sleep better, you won't be in so much pain, and you're going to be able to be more of a savage on the mats. That sort of starts to speak the language to that person where they're like, okay, I'll go to the gym a couple of days a week if it's going to help me on the mats. And I think that that's really kind of how we try and angle things. We're always acknowledging, hey, we know you guys don't want to be like gym heads, and we like the gym, we like training. So we're always like, we know you're not necessarily like us. However, if you want these results for yourself in jiu-jitsu, this is what you need to do. And I think that it's probably not something that speaks to a white belt because they haven't necessarily hit that part of the road yet. But it speaks to blue, purple, brown, who have been there for a long time and like, yes, I have those problems.
And just to add to that, guys, the thing which is a big difference for us is we are going for optimal. Like a lot of people out there, they're looking at peak, like how do I just train to be like the best? But a lot of people don't realize is the peak is not, like you could probably get there, but you can't keep it. Like you're there for a moment and then you fall off. And in the pursuit of peak, people often get injured, right? And this is the biggest problem in jiu-jitsu. What we're looking at is the minimal effective dose, right? Like we don't want you to be in the gym 5 days a week. We don't want you spending hours a day doing this stuff. We want you to do just enough to get you right. And doing those very particular things that are very effective in that minimal effective dose. And I think that is where Bulletproof is completely different to everything else that's out there. And we know as jiu-jitsu heads, as well as gym heads, and also, you get older, you get responsibilities, you get kids, you don't have 5 hours to just hang out in the gym. You got to get in, get it done, and have enough time for your life. And we're all about supporting that.
Yeah. And one of the things which I really kind of discovered in this process, and I'm very much in the beginning of the journey. I'm committed that I do some of your work at some point. So I'm coming your way at some point, guys. But
cool.
I really kind of used to have this view of weight training that it reduced flexibility and mobility. So I'd love you to talk, for people who haven't done much mobility work, like, can you talk a bit about how that all works? Because in my experience, the weight training that I'm learning to do now is having the opposite impact. So, yeah.
I think that, that's a really common sort of misbelief. And I think it's held because weight training, as the general population know it, comes from bodybuilding, right? The gym culture that we all know started in around the 80s, and it started with guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff. So, and that style of training, this isolation, hypertrophy-based work where muscle growth really is the goal, it does make you tighter. It makes the body more rigid. The other side of that is that a lot of the training that people are doing these days, you know, even at CrossFit, even just in regular gyms, it's more whole body movements, it's more compound lifts. It's more mindful of incorporating multiple joints into an exercise. So in that way, strength training does make you more mobile because you can use it to train to these end ranges. Something that we push in the program a lot is making people understand where the start and end point of an exercise is. So it's like, you know, full flexion of the knee, like getting right down to the bottom of a squat, ideally so that your hamstrings and your calves are touching, and then coming all the way up to the knee and the hip are fully extended and contracting the glutes. If you're doing that sort of movement from one end of the range to the other, you are building mobility under load. And that has the biggest carryover to jiu-jitsu, because we're trying to express our flexibility on the mats with the load of someone else on us or fighting against it.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely our exercise selection, right? You got to get the right tool for the job. You don't want to pick like a single-use tool. You want to get a tool that's going to give you 5 different benefits. And that's what we do. We've been very selective, and, you know, through our collective experience, we've gone back and forth. We challenge each other. I want this now, but this is better. And we've brought that together to synthesize this thing, which is honestly the best stuff you can do, so that in under 40 minutes, you can be stronger and more flexible at the same freaking time. And it's just that people are not aware that it's possible till you do it and you think, wow, I feel better.
Can we talk a little bit too about motivation? Like we talked about the lockdown. You guys are both very experienced. Have you got any tips for people who might be suffering a little bit? I know, as Anton said, Melbourne seems to sort of lock, unlock. And sometimes I've noticed that some people seem to have dropped off with jiu-jitsu in that time. Maybe they sort of lose their, I don't know if it's motivation as much as just a habit, that maybe they used to train these X days and now with the lockdowns, they don't seem to do it anymore. Have you got any advice or any tips for people that might be struggling?
Yeah. It's hard. I don't want to sound condescending in response to this, because it's very like people are dealing with their own things, and there's a lot of a lot of people are in different situations, right? Financially, from a family perspective, some people are some people have lost their job. Some people are making more money than ever and got more time. Like it's quite random from that perspective. And obviously for guys like us who we've built a business and a life around exercise, we're obviously quite self-driven when it comes to this sort of thing. A big part for me, and don't get me wrong, I still experience, like down days, and I experience plenty of times where I really don't feel like training. Pretty much every day, I'll be honest, I'm like, I could think of something I'd rather do than go and exercise for 60, 90 minutes. True. But the thing that gets me motivated is, one, like, what kind of person do I see myself as? And I see myself as a person who is motivated and is strong and is muscular. And I like all of those qualities about myself. So I'm like, well, if that's how I see myself, then I need to go and exercise right now. The other part of it is that, and this is maybe a little bit sort of lucky for us, is that because we kind of lead this group of people, we sort of have an obligation to maintain a standard.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't want to become the sloppy rig guy that has a fitness company. So, you know what I mean? So there's a really positive pressure there to keep it going.
Yeah. And look, for me, mentally not having jiu-jitsu is a mental health issue. I feel the need to strangle people on a 10 minute turnover basis.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting next to this guy. But it's one of those things that because I have such, like, I don't know whether it's my brain, my hormones, whatever it is, insecurities, my will, my need to conquer the world. I will swap jiu-jitsu. Like, obviously weight training is not a substitute for jiu-jitsu, but I have to do something which is helping me with my well-being. You know, if I don't, I become like an angry, resentful hater. And it's the worst version of me in the world. It's not fair to anyone that I be like that. And so understanding myself, I know that like I have to implement routine. And so I think the thing that we're learning more and more now is like we've gone from having structure from our jobs. And now if we don't have those jobs or if we're working at home, we've got to create that structure ourselves. So the thing I've been saying to all my students who can't do jiu-jitsu right now, they've been tuning in for Zoom sessions. I've been doing bulletproof morning sessions 3 times a week, which has been facilitated by Jungle Brothers. It's been great. Just pick one thing every day that you're going to do to look after yourself. So it doesn't mean you got to go running. It doesn't mean you got to lift heavy weights. It might mean you do that ankle rehab, or you do the stretches your trainer showed you. You do something which is absolutely you making space to look after yourself. And I feel that the reason why Bulletproof is growing and getting better is we are advocating for people to take care of themselves.
I love it. Could you guys
just one thing to add to that is I find, and I'm sure this would resonate with you guys and a lot of your listeners, but if you don't exercise in a day, like you have a day where you just get up and work all day and then ultimately you enjoy that day less.
Yeah.
And it's, you have this kind of thing in your head that's like, you didn't fucking break a sweat today. You didn't, and you're like, fuck, it makes you a bit anxious. And that means that it affects the whole day. Whereas if I go out and do the training, I come home, I work more productively. I'm nicer to be around. I'm more engaging with my partner and my kids. It's just, it brings out the best side of me. So that's really important as a daily driver.
I love it. And one of the things which stood out to me just then is like I've found as a very busy person that if I prioritize the things that are most important to me first in the day, where I have the most energy bandwidth, is very like it will happen. But if I prioritize it later in the day, as I kind of get ground down by the events of the day, it's less likely to happen. So if exercise or routine is important, I put all that stuff at the front end. Okay, so question for you guys around this motivation stuff, because you're both specimens, you know what I mean? You're both driven specimens, but you may have not been, right? And what I think is great for people to hear or know about is like, have you been knocked off? Have you been taken out and you've gotten back, or has just life just been just this beautiful, smooth sailing upward trajectory?
Don't ask Joe.
Joe's
had far too much success in jiu-jitsu in life.
And most importantly, how did you get yourself back on track? How did you drag yourself out of that adversity to be back on track?
It's a good question.
Well, Joe's had to come back from a really major knee injury.
Yeah, I had an ACL reconstruction, which was, I ruptured it training jiu-jitsu, fucked up the meniscus, did a bunch of damage. So I had 2 surgeries off the back of that. And that's kind of been the journey over the last, it's been for most of Bulletproof, actually. Yeah. It's been like for the last year and a half, sort of 2 years. It definitely, I could have seen it as a massive like hindrance to this journey that I'm on and to my physical development and my businesses and stuff. But in a sense, I mean, I wish it didn't happen. It would have been kind of cool to not have had to go through that. But at the same time, it was also a really cool experience because it forced me to look at other areas of my training and to learn new things about this game and, how we manage injuries and what we can do to best overcome them and that sort of thing. So, it wasn't a great moment. But I always look at things, and I might end up eating these words someday, but I do always look at things on the bright side. And I'm like, well, there's a great opportunity from this because I know a lot of jiu-jitsu people that get injured, and these are the people that I'm helping, and even general population through my gym. So it's, it was a positive experience largely for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I had a really bad hip injury number of years ago, and it put me in a bit of I wouldn't say a bit of a funk. I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I was dislocated from jiu-jitsu. I went from being as strong as I've ever been in my life and smashing at jiu-jitsu and feeling like I'm a beast. I'm going to compete. I'm going to this and that, to I can't walk. I'm on the couch.
Wow.
I'm stuck. I'm a disabled old man. And it was such a confronting thought to go from everything's great until you're not. But this is the experience of all of us, right? Like I'm sure you guys have had your injuries and you've had those moments of pain and not just pain, but just like, I can't even bloody go to the shops and get my bloody shopping. Like, the hell is wrong with me? Like, why am I doing
You're
this
a dependent.
stuff?
Yeah.
Because you just want to be a normal, independent person, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, am I wrecking myself through jiu-jitsu for what? And it makes you question, should I keep going? So I think the difference is this. When you get an injury, you feel isolated. You can't see your friends at jiu-jitsu. And in fact, sometimes there's shame around injury. Like, oh, just train through.
Yeah.
Like, just show up anyway.
I had a hip injury. I trained.
Yeah.
Like, but you hear that shit, right? Your coach, oh, yeah, I had that kind of thing. But
everyone's had that same hip injury
anyway.
Train through it.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that made a difference for me is like I had community through my gym. So where I could go do my rehabs, I had people I knew I could talk to. And I think one of the biggest things we love about jiu-jitsu is our mates, our crew, our coach and stuff like that. But sometimes injury can disconnect us. So in terms of falling off, it was never like, oh, like I hate jiu-jitsu, but I was questioning if jiu-jitsu is going to just wreck my life, my normal everyday life. And I think, once you understand that you can do the rehab, you do the rehab, you get help, you get assistance, you can make your way back to the mat. So I think what we're trying to do is show people that if you're injured, you're actually part of a community. You've joined the real jiu-jitsu community. Behind the veil is, hey, you're like 50% of us.
That's so true. There is a community for people who've had helicopter accidents. And so I totally get what you mean. Like,
But the thing is, you don't want to stay on the freaking couch, right? You want to get back to jiu-jitsu. And so I think, turning your pain into someone else's kind of power is giving people the tools to get off the couch and get back on the mat.
Yeah.
And then if you can, prevent those injuries long term. And I think that's what our teamwork has tried to build.
It's brilliant.
On another note, Joey, you and your partner had a baby end of last year or beginning of this year. Is that right?
Yeah, beginning of this year, early January.
Yeah. How's all that going? How's being a dad treating you?
Yeah, it's great. It's a real special time. His name's Leo, and he's 7 months old. It's great. I mean, he's a bit of a handful at night. My partner's not sleeping very well. I feel for her. She is breastfeeding, so unfortunately, I can't really jump in on that process. But he's an amazing little kid. He's like super happy. We're introducing him to solids right now. He loves it. I feel very fortunate that he's a smiley, healthy little boy. And in terms of like for me, I don't know. It's I guess I'm kind of fortunate that now we're working from home more, and just with where I'm at with Bulletproof and with Jungle Brothers, I can be at home. I can be around him. If it had been a few years ago, I was sort of at the gym 6 days a week. So I feel like it's a very fortunate timing for me.
That's awesome. A question for you, and this is totally off topic, kind of, but I find a lot of people around me having babies. I've had kids, and everybody always writes when someone has a kid, congratulations on their wall, right? But I'm wondering, what the fuck are we congratulating people for in having a baby? Like, I get babies are awesome. I love babies. I love human beings. I love it all. But is congratulations the right word for people having sex 9 months ago and a baby being born now? Like, what do we actually congratulate? Like, I'm just interested. What does congratulations mean when someone has a baby? Enlighten me.
Well, I suppose because I'm one of those people, every time I see a baby, I'm like the obligatory congratulations, love heart thing. I don't know what else to say, right?
Sure.
To the person. Yeah. I suppose there's definitely something special about, hey, you were lucky enough to have a baby.
True.
And it all went through successfully. So it's like, congratulations, man, it worked out. I don't know. It's also the same thing that we say when someone buys a house and takes on a massive mortgage. And we're like, congratulations, man! You got like $1 million that you're gonna be paying back for the next
That's right.
ever life. Yeah,
that's right.
I don't know if it's a bit of a projection from the people that are saying it.
Congratulations in advance. That's what I'm going to say from now on. Congratulations in advance to your 18-year-old adult now walking around in the world.
I think it's like a milestone, though, Anton, of like it's celebrating the milestone of the changing of the the next step or whatever in their life, whatever it is, whether it's parenthood or home ownership or whatever it is. That's probably
okay. I like that. I'm taking that on.
I'm not someone who has kids, but even though I think that could happen, right? I'd love to have a kid. But the deal is such that I feel that my friends who have kids have said it's a confederacy of lies. People don't tell you the first year is fucking hell. Yes. You're not going to sleep. You're going to be spewed on, shat on. Like it's lucky that you love the hell out of that little gremlin, right?
Oh my
but
God.
how can you put that on a Facebook post? It kind of looks like a weird squashed prawn, and good luck to you. Your life's about to take a downward slump. Like no one's saying that.
No. So, it's a roller coaster at best. Okay, it's a roller coaster at best, and it's a wonderful roller coaster. I'm just not sure. Congratulations, right? I'm looking for that magical way of saying,
sucked in.
Oh God! It could just be kind of a lukewarm delivered, like good job. A little bit cynical.
One more question for Joey. We don't have a whole lot of time. We've already heard JT's story of how he discovered jiu-jitsu, and I actually started at the club at Peter Bean with JT way back in the day. How about you, Joey? Tell us your story of. We pretty much asked this of all, I guess. How you started jiu-jitsu, how you discovered it.
I discovered it. I was traveling. I'd been sort of traveling around the world for a while in my early 20s, and I was in San Diego. I caught up with my cousin who was from Sydney. He had a few mates coming into town. We caught up with them. They were just passing through. It was the 4th of July. We were down on the beach. Obviously, American Independence Day, like it's just parties for as far as the eye can see on the beach. And we got talking to some military kids. And one of the guys that was with us was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. And I had heard a little bit about it. I was a fan of the early UFC. So I was following like Royce Gracie and stuff. And anyway, it turned out one of these military kids was also training jiu-jitsu. So him and the Aussie guy had a roll, and it was right there in front of us on the sand. They were just going at it. And the Aussie guy just tapped this dude like 4 or 5 times in a matter of minutes. And I was like, fuck, that's so cool. I had, martial arts background. So like from, earlier in my childhood. So I thought that's really cool. The guy said to me, mate, when you get back to Sydney, you should come and train with us. He lived in Bondi. It turns out when I got back to Sydney, I moved to Bondi and the gym was on the same street.
Wow.
And so I just went along. I'd been back in town for like a week. I went to the gym, did my first class and loved it. And that was the start of it all.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about all we have time for today, legends. Unless there's anything else you want to get out to your community or to our community, anything you want to send out?
I'd just say, thank you so much for having us on here. Thank you for having me back a third time. You're not sick of me already. Obviously, got to get Joe in. And I just really appreciate you guys doing what you're doing to share with your community and giving us opportunity to just speak to them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, likewise for me. Sorry, I'm typically quite hard to get a hold of, but it was a pleasure to be on your show today. It's nice to connect with you guys. Anton, we haven't met before, but Kim, we've obviously had some, back and forth through the Instagram. So it's a real honor to be on your show.
Yeah.
And I hope that maybe some of the stuff we said could help a couple of your people.
I hope so. We've grown a little bit since you were last on, JT. We've got a YouTube channel now. I think we were already on Spotify and iTunes, but we've got an Instagram account now. We're on up and up. So hopefully if you could share it all on your platform, that would be awesome to help grow our audience, and we'll do the same. I think we have more than about 10 listeners now, don't we, Anton? I think
up to 10.
Sometimes we get up in the hundreds.
Double digits.
They're right in your target market. They're like,
Yeah, but thank you so much, guys. You do an amazing job. It's definitely needed in the jiu-jitsu community. So it's fantastic to have you both on sharing the wisdom. So look forward to rolling again soon. Let's end these lockdowns so we can get back on the mats.
Fingers crossed. All right, guys.
Peace out, legends.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Take care.